welcome to today's Africanus Parents webinar on the theme of online safety, nurturing digital resilience in today's children. A very valid question on every parent's mind today is, how safe are our children online? In today's rapidly evolving digital landscape, ensuring the online safety of our children becomes a very paramount concern for all parents and caregivers. As the summer holidays approach especially, and children spend more time online, engaged in digital devices and online content, it becomes even more crucial for parents and caregivers to be equipped with the necessary knowledge and tools required to protect children and keep them away from potential risks and challenges that they might face in the online environment. This webinar is therefore designed to empower our parents as well as caregivers with the knowledge and tools that they would need to protect their children online, and also to promote a safe online environment for children. In this riveting session, we'll dive deep into the digital landscape that our children navigate daily, and we'll also explore the potential opportunities which exist for the children to develop themselves while engaging online. Now, one very important thing we'll cover today as well is the risks and the challenges that they might face online. From cyberbullying to privacy concerns, we'll shed light on the hidden dangers lurking in the virtual realm. This webinar aims to bridge the gap between parents as well as caregivers and teachers and children by providing practical resources and guidance on maximizing the numerous benefits and opportunities which the online world presents, while at the same time protecting our children from the potential risks of online exposure and fostering digital resilience in those young minds that are the future. My name is Pedi Obani, and I am the parent team lead for Africanus. My background is in law, human rights, higher education, and inclusive development. I'm delighted to be your host today, and I keenly look forward to engaging with each and every one of you. Now, we're honored to have with us our esteemed guest speakers who are renowned digital experts, child safety experts, as well as parents advocates. These experts we have with us today will shed light on the complexities of online safety and offer their invaluable insights and experiences and advice to empower our parents and caregivers in order to ensure that we're able to support our children to remain safe online. Together, we will explore the importance of strong parental supports and also the resources and opportunities for nurturing self-assurance, adaptability, and emotional intelligence, which are crucial skills and attributes for supporting children when they engage online. Now, we started this session with one webinar where we had Janice Richardson. And in that webinar, Janice Richardson, who is an advisor on European, African, and international projects on education, vocational training, AI, digital citizenship, was with us. She is an initiator of Safer Internet Day, which was established in 2004, and she has supported the creation of European Commission's 31-country in Safe Online Child Protection Network. This is a network that she has led for a decade before developing another EU-funded network, Enable, which aims to tackle bullying in learning and leisure environments. Janice is a co-author and indeed an author of several books published mainly by the Council of Europe and UNESCO, and she has made many TV appearances from Iran and Morocco to Singapore and Brazil. And indeed, she sits on the International Advisory Councils of Meta, Instagram, and Snapchat. She's currently an advisor on European, African, and international projects on education, vocational training, AI, and digital citizenship. Now, Janice has shared with us her wealth of experience. And if you have not already seen Janice's talk, which we have on the website, I'll encourage you to please do so. You can access Janice's talk on Africanus Parents web app, and we'll share with you the links to that web app later on in today's session. Now, we're also delighted to have with us live in person today two other eminent speakers. First, we have Dr. Elizabeth Milovidov. Elizabeth is the founder of digitalparentingcoach.com, which provides resource for parents and caregivers. She's a lawyer, a law professor, and a child online protection expert with more than 20 years of experience. She has advised governments and children protection agencies, as well as nonprofits and think tanks on public awareness campaigns, research initiatives, and public policy strategies related to digital safety, parenting, well-being. She's currently the Senior Corporate Counsel supporting the LEGO Group. Now, the LEGO Group is a trusted leader in implementing and promoting digital child safety, well-being, and citizenship in parallel with responsible digital gaming and metaverse experiences. So welcome, Elizabeth. We're delighted to have you with us today. We also have with us Alex Holmes. Alex is the Deputy CEO of the non-profit The Diana Award. Alex is also a director at BBC Children in Need, which focuses on their We Move, a fund and eventual movement empowering Black children and young people in the UK. Alex is a founder of peer-to-peer support program Anti-Bullying Ambassadors, which is a network of trained young people dedicated to preventing peer-on-peer violence and all types of bullying, particularly in schools. This program has trained over 45,000 young people across the UK, Ireland, Greece, and Miami in the United States. Now, Alex sits on the global advisory board of several of the major social media companies such as Spotify, Meta, TikTok, Twitch, Yobo, and Snapchat. Alex advises them on their approach to safety and online harms. Alex is a regular guest on TV programs such as the CBBS Newsrooms and the trusted government advisor on these matters. So we're very delighted to have Alex here with us today. I know that by now, most of you are itching to hear from these experts. You've heard enough of me, and that's valid. So without further ado, I will go on to the business for today, which is how do we keep our children safe online? Now, to start with, I guess one of the main things to ask ourselves is there really any benefit to online engagement? And we will hear from the experts as to whether or not there are benefits, because we know that increasingly children are engaging online, from educational purposes to gaming, to networking, to leisure activities. There are all sorts of reasons for which children go online today, either on their own initiatives or even being encouraged by parents and other adults around them. So the question then is, and I'll put this to Alex, does online engagement present any opportunity for children's development? And if so, how? Over to you, Alex.
Yeah, thank you so much, and great to be here. I think the answer is yes. When I think of my time growing up, I either had to use books, or if you were lucky, do you remember Encarta Encyclopedia? It was pretty in depth, but still that was limited. But now, growing up, you really have access to the whole world, and that means you don't just get to understand more about yourself and your community, but you actually get to learn about the world. And I think those are really, really important skills. And I think with something like online engagement, what we know really is that it's about a balance. So, you know, just like many other offline activities or perhaps behaviors, too much of something can become damaging, I suppose, and toxic. So rather than perhaps looking at social media or online engagement as the only problem, maybe think more about for your child or for another child, what do they need to have in balance? So actually, is their sleep good? Is their exercise good? Are their grades and attainment goods, and so on? And think, okay, if one of those are not good, could it be because of online engagement? Because actually it is a really positive space, and it's important to sort of balance that out. I think something like screen time, again, there are some good recommendations about perhaps how you balance that, how much is too much, and after perhaps doing homework and doing a bit of leisure time, how do you make sure that actually your child has a bit of a healthy balance and also gets opportunities to do things that are not just on the screen, such as socializing and making friends and being outside in nature. So I think, yeah, that the studies have definitely suggested that online engagement and time spent online can be really positive, can be really productive. But I suppose it's important, which I'm sure Elizabeth's going to talk a little bit about, to make sure that, perhaps as a parent, you understand some of the things they're accessing and some of the settings, so that actually that content isn't harmful. And instead, it's part of building a really healthy balance, and a mixture of opportunities for your child to see and the world around them and to understand better themselves and their peers, because we know there's a lot of connections. And I suppose, speaking as an adult, sometimes adults online engagement can be negative, so we need to really reflect on that and think about what message are we sending to our child.
And actually, I am going to jump in, Alex, just because one of the things that I think is super important when we're talking about this, the opportunities for online engagement, is that we also remember neurodiverse children, and just to be really inclusive and to think about all of the children who can engage online and use it differently than what you expect. I'm talking about even children who are connecting, children who are having different issues and want to reach out and speak with peers. So there is a lot that internet can offer. But again, as Alex so rightly said, within reason, with balance, and hopefully always with parents or a trusted third party around, so that way they can respond to any questions. And Petty, just one quick other aside, I really also want to thank all of your parent community for coming together and for being here, whether they're live right now or they're watching the recording, because this is already the biggest step, is parental awareness. Having parents talk about some of these issues, whether we answer all of your questions or not, you now know that you have a community with AfriKindness, and you can go back to them and ask questions and get more resources. So use them, use us. Alex and I are here. And so there you go. I just want to make sure that everybody knew that they can do this, to be reassured and to hold on, and not hold your breath, but to hold on. We've got this.
Thank you so much for being so encouraging, both Alex and Elizabeth. And I would reiterate, please send in your questions through the chat box, as we go on with the conversation. And we are more than happy to take those questions live as they come in. If at any point any of the speakers says something that you want a bit more light on to be shed on, please feel free to put that in the chat box. And then you could also raise your hands and we will invite you to, ask the questions directly. Just building on what you've mentioned, Elizabeth, and I think also Alex mentioned this, you've talked about, it is clear that there are opportunities, there are benefits of engaging online for children. So I guess the question is, what would you recommend as some practices for maximizing these potential benefits? One question that's very often on parents' minds is, how do we manage screen time? So what would you recommend for managing screen time, for instance, during the holidays?
Yeah.
And how can parents actually encourage children to engage in all those wonderful offline activities, which Alex mentioned, while still embracing the opportunities and benefits presented by technology?
Yeah, well, I think you're going to get tired of hearing us say balance, but we're going to keep saying it. And I think perhaps the easiest way is, if we don't think of this as an online issue, think of it as something that we already deal with. So for example, let's say chocolate. Let's compare it to chocolate, right? Almost everybody likes chocolate. We all know that too much chocolate, it's not great for you. So you're going to have balance. You're going to figure out a way to have your vegetables first before you get to that chocolate. And so this is the same thing with screen time. If you talk with your children and you realize that, that this is just tasty, really interesting stuff, they want to be online, they want to be on social media, they want to exchange and connect with their friends, or they want to play online video games where they are developing critical thinking, they're doing different tasks and strategies. All of these things are fine. You may even have children that are on creative apps and platforms, creating music or art or writing books. So there are all sorts of opportunities. But again, as we're talking about, thinking about it as what we ingest and nutrition, take a week, for example, and just chart out what your children are doing and add yourself in there too. What are you doing online? What types of activities? Where do you spend your most time? I think I could pretty safely assume, Petty, that in the morning you might look at your phone. maybe. Yeah, gotcha. See, I do too.
Don't call me out. Yeah, you
It's
got me.
all of this. It's all of us, right? And so the whole idea is that we recognize these habits and we share them with our children, so that way they realize that we're not infallible and that we work on it, and that we say, for example, for the summer, whatever we're doing, whatever family plans that we have, that we give those the priority. And there are some things that you can do together online as well. So a family movie night, or exploring doing geolocalization tag. I don't know. You can find these things, but more importantly, ask your children. Tell them what you want to do. Tell them how you think this is an important time. Maybe they're going off to university soon, or maybe I don't know, they're doing something else, and you just want to have a little bit of extra bonding time with them. I think that when you speak to them and let them be aware of the issue, you can create a solution together. There are so many other ways of managing screen time using technological tools. So, I mean, I can always speak about those as far as, using the parental controls that you might have within your iOS system on screen time, or on Android with Google Family Link. All of these tools are fantastic, but they also have their limits. And so with you being the parental control, the parent who is controlling, and I prefer guidance, offering parental guidance, then you can really help manage that screen time in the summer, and find ways to help them take breaks online, offline, and to really embrace the joys of technology, because there are tons of benefits, from learning a language to using math apps to brush up on math during the summer. Let's say that somebody's having a little bit of summer slide, so you can no, Petty, I'm not calling anybody out anymore. but really, we can use this to up our game over the summer.
Thank you very much for that. I mean, now that we've clearly seen that there are benefits, and there are also ways in which parents can practically maximize those benefits through, for instance, parental control, being there, and actually seeing what those children are doing online. I think that's more reassuring, at least for me. So I think this leads us nicely to the next set of questions. I mean, before this webinar, we put out a poll to our parents, our parent community, and we asked them, what kinds of issues are you concerned about? And one of the things they raised is around online safety and issues around inappropriate content. How do we identify worrisome behavior, things like that. So I think in this next segment, we'll focus a bit more on those sets of questions. Elizabeth, if you don't mind, I'll start with you again. This is because you called me out the first time. So the question is, how do the digital habits and online behaviors of children change during the summer season? Have you noticed any trends? And are there specific ways in which parents can manage this? Are there specific challenges or trends or behavioral patterns that parents need to be aware of during the holidays?
Yeah. And, I think also what's really good, Petty, I'm going to share some of this question with Alex, because I think one of the reasons why we're so complementary is that I focus on parent participation. So really working with parents, and Alex does a lot of work with the youth and the children. So he's able to really tap into that younger generation, so to speak. So I can tell you that with respect to online safety concerns in general, there will always be something. Okay, there will always be something, even a few years ago, I remember people were saying, but how safe is it to be online? And children, unfortunately, can be very creative when they want to be mean. So, for example, children are able to do cyberbullying using Google Documents, or share inappropriate sex messaging using Google Documents, or some other sort of online sharing. Anywhere that you can create content and share, children will find a way. Even if it's on an online video game and they're chatting, for instance, they can say mean and unkind things there too. So for me, it's not always the idea to be focused on the technology or the platform. It's to focus on the child and the behavior. And so when we're talking about, do these online behaviors change during the summer? Of course they do, because they're a little bit freer, right? They're not with that strict routine of summer of school and class, and so they feel like they can do more. They feel like it's a little bit more permissive. And also, let's face it, if they're out by swimming pools and beaches, then they're a little bit wearing less clothing, and so they're taking other types of pictures. So I think, again, it's just this idea of parents having conversations and really talking to their children about their own family expectations, and about what children probably could get into. And it's not too different from when we were young. It's just the environment has changed. It's not online, it's not offline, but it's more online. And I think by staying calm that way and having these types of conversations, they can really address it. But just one more question before I turn it over to Alex. With respect to any specific trends, I think that any types of challenges and trends, I mean, they do go viral at all different types of moments, whether we're on social media, and it doesn't matter which platform, it really doesn't matter. I think that that is a huge invitation for all parents, if your child is on TikTok or Snapchat or Threads, to go and take a look at the safety centers. All of these platforms have safety centers, and they tell parents how to have conversations with their children, what to look out for. Really, parents, I promise it's only 15 minutes of your time to go and look at these safety centers and get that information. Alex, have you seen any sort of trends happening already, or any sort of challenges that you can think of?
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. I think one of the things that we find is that online engagement and time spent online perhaps does increase during the summer holidays because of the increased freedom of time. So I think it is even more important to sort of set boundaries and to make sure that sleep isn't being impacted by online use. But I think on the other hand, you know, it's a big period of time when young people are separated from their peers and perhaps aren't able to connect with some of their peers, and those friendships that they hold really important to them because of the time they spend at school, they will be missing. So it's great that, you know, children can connect, but I think there's definitely important rules and boundaries to put in place around making sure that sleep does not get impacted too much, and that they're still productive and awake during the day. Because I certainly know, as a keen gamer when I was younger, sometimes that didn't always happen for myself. Elizabeth's point about the challenges and hoax, I think, is important. You know, we do see those come around, as Elizabeth mentioned, all year round. But if you have more time on those, you might try and go viral, or young people would call it try and get clout, which is sort of attention and fame for being a social media influencer, or just getting lots of views, lots of hits. So I think it's important to look for that. But again, maybe think about the signs that if you notice a change in your child's behavior, if you notice that actually their attitude is slightly different, or they're becoming more fixated around technology, or perhaps withdrawn, then it's worth talking about that. And I really liked Elizabeth's point around the sort of hoax and challenges. And maybe actually, if you read about something that is in the media, if it's an influencer or if it's a certain platform, that's a great conversation starter to have with your child. Say, you know, I was reading in the newspaper about this new app or this new feature or this challenge that sounds a bit dangerous. And then pose the questions then, you know, what would you do if you saw one of your friends engaging in this trend or this hoax? How would you support them, and help them really instill some of that confidence and that resilience into them, so that hopefully if they come across the similar thing, they know how to act and they know how to support themselves and support their peers.
Thank you so much for that, Alex. I mean, I was going to ask you, and thanks to Elizabeth, I must say, I was going to ask you next about how parents can identify these risks and address them effectively. But I think you've started out already by saying, you know, have these conversations with the children. So is there more you would like to shed a bit more light on that issue, on how to identify and manage these trends and risks?
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I think when we're talking about common risk and challenges, I think really most parents are thinking about cyberbullying or grooming, or wondering if their child is sending inappropriate photos, etc. So I would say I'll leave cyberbullying to Alex because that's his specialty. But I would say for things like grooming or even inappropriate text, some of the warning signs would be things like your child closing up their tablet, closing their phone, closing the computer, not letting you see what they're doing. They might become moody or withdrawn. You don't know what types of conversation someone is having with them. So their behavior is going to change. They may not want to go to school, or if now we're talking about the summer, they may not want to go outside and engage in any of these activities because they're having an online issue, what sometimes we call digital drama. So I think that any of those types of warning signs, or just anything where you think your child is not acting as they were before, don't just brush it off and say, oh, it's teenagers, or oh, it's tweens, they're 9 to 12 and they're just being really crazy. No, no, no. Really take this as a moment to, you're not cooking dinner, you're not washing dishes, you're just sitting there hanging out with them, or perhaps even washing dishes if you're washing with them, because that's a nice little moment where you're doing something else and you can have a conversation. You're in the car and you're driving and you're just having a conversation, because really the biggest and most important role of a parent right now is trying to get your child to open up and share with on, because from everything that I've seen, so many online problems happen when children believe they can solve it themselves, or they feel that no one can help them at all and they become despondent. And it's really not true. We can support them, we can help them if, again, we recognize some of these signs and we're able to intervene.
Thank you so much for that. And I see a question in the Q&A, which I think we should answer live now, because it's sort of linked to the question that I asked. So I had asked about the summer holidays, but now it's the question about the winter holidays, or the winter period rather, from Joanna Kolomama. And the question is, how can we engage our children during winter when they can't be outside without resorting to phones and tablets?
Well,
Alex?
Joanna, yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to jump in here because I saw this one quick too as well. And I'll hand it over to Alex. Activities. We know that we need activities, right? And so this is, I don't know the age of your children, Joanna, but when they're younger, try to plan play dates and activities and extracurricular things for them to do with other children or family relatives or neighbors. Because once you can get some of these routines going, your children will remember how fun it is to do something, to go roller skating or rollerblading, yes, or ice skating, if we're talking winter, or just to go out and do, I don't know, where they're out looking at for different winter animals or something, or winter insects, depending on the age. And also, Joanna, I would say, don't be afraid also to let your children be bored. It is okay for our children to be bored. We have this crazy idea that we have to fill them up with activities. They have to do something all the time to be smarter, bigger, wiser. They can be bored. They can sit there and say, Mommy, I'm so bored. That's okay. They will be creative. They will find something else to do. Go ahead, Alex. I'm sorry I cut you off, but I love that question. Go, Alex, go.
No, it's great. I think it's really, really good advice. And, I think, I think my advice would be sort of don't forget to draw on your network that you have, your support network that you have with other parents as well. Maybe you can arrange things together to cover some of that. And yeah, I think at the end, the other thing I maybe suggest is literature, reading, board games as well. There are some fun new innovative board games out there that you might be able to get your child hooked on. And yeah, I think everything that Elizabeth's covered as well is good.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I must say that in doing the research for this webinar, we've learned a lot of things, the new trends, the new platforms, there's so much to learn out there. And I think it leads me to the next question. In light of all of these trends and the statistics, the experiences which you've had, what would you say are the most pressing concerns? You've mentioned some of those already, but I think linked to that, because these things keep changing. And I think Elizabeth said, let's not get fixated on the technology, but let's just be aware. So I guess the question then is, how can parents stay up to date and informed about these issues?
Yeah.
Where do they start?
Yes. So I think Alex already hit it right on the head when he said talking with other parents, right? So you have communities, and while you are able to, prepare an end of the school year party, or you're able to plan a birthday party with other parents, why can you not sit and just keep each other updated on what's going on? What's the latest social media app? What are some of the best parental control tools that are out there? I also think that we forget, again, we get this idea that it's online and it's only us that's dealing with this issue, and it's not. Parents around the world, and Alex can vouch for this as well, we've traveled and spoken in many different places. It's always the same. Parents are always concerned about what their children are doing online because they don't always know about it. And again, that's where some of the can happen. Just to mention quickly, I also put in the chat a link to my Facebook group, which is the Digital Parenting Community. There we have actually Alex is there, child online protection experts, other parents, grandparents. where ask us a question. This is what we do, and we will answer. And then I also wanted to answer for Ermine, because I see that she asked a question about kid influencers, and I put in an article there where I reported into BBC about what I felt were some of the things that parents should be looking out for. And again, just to say that child content creators in general, anything that our children are doing online, whether they're playing video games, creating content, trying to become a model, as long as parents are there and supporting and guiding, there really is not that much of an issue, because the parents are there. It's when the parents are absent and the children are thinking they can do these things on their own and that they have the wisdom and that they're grown. This is when we start having problems.
Thank you so much. Now, you've mentioned speaking to other parents, so taking advantage of the parents' community and then just trying to learn what's out there.
Oh, sorry, PD. Just as soon as you said that, sorry. I told you, you got
No,
me excited.
One more,
just in general, too, is sign up for newsletters. My goodness, if you're in the UK, there's Internet Matters, the Parent Zone. If you're in the United States, there's Common Sense Media, Family Online Safety Institute. If you're in Africa, there are other places, and I know because my friend Awa is in Ghana, people in Nigeria. There are online safety places, and so just Google that and find or use whatever search browser you would like, just to find that information. And yeah, I will share some, Angela. I'll start putting them in the link right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And just wondering, for a parent who's not conversant with modern digital platforms at all, right, to whom all of this sounds really strange, where can they begin?
Well, yeah, I think Elizabeth just put some places in the chat now. So there are some really good sites that will give you an overview of how some of the platforms work and some of the key safety features and principles that you might want to think about. But I think don't be afraid to have a conversation with your child as well about what platforms they're using and how they work, and learn together. Also with other parents. But yeah, I think we're really lucky in the UK that there are lots of internet safety organizations that will give rundowns, and of course all the platforms have safety centers as well. Now, some of those safety centers will offer features to parents where you can link your account as an adult or as a parent or guardian to their account, and in some cases you can see some of their interactions, not the actual content, because that might be a little bit against the child's rights and privacy. But there's a number of platforms such as Snapchat, TikTok, Google, Android phones, and so on, where you can link a parent account to their account. But I think it's really important that you balance that your own child's right to freedom to express themselves and to be themselves and privacy with your concerns around their safety, and it should always be done jointly and with a conversation, because I think what isn't so helpful is sort of spy software or things that actually don't instill trust in your child, whereas really you want them to know that if they ever had a problem or a worry or concern, they could come to you, and that you're going to be calm and that you're going to support them, rather than from the outset that you're not trusting them. That's never that a great feeling for a child. So instead, I think make sure that you're doing things in conjunction and that you both know how you can support each other and what you need to know as a parent from that child in terms of their activity online.
Oh, I'm coming back in, Pity. I am. So, Alex, yes, that makes me just, yay. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's these conversations and being there for your children. And I want to share a tip that a friend, Tito, in Portugal, he shared this a long time ago, and I've been using it ever since. So for the parents of tweens and teenagers, you are going to write a little note to your child, the little letter saying, I will not yell at you. I will not take everything away. You make this a little note, you give it to them in this envelope they keep by their bedside. And it's a reminder that you've got their back, because children forget, and they think that as soon as they tell you about a problem, somebody sent them something, or maybe they bullied someone. And I want parents to understand that sometimes your child is not the one who's being bullied. He is or she is the one who is bullying someone else. It's never the bullying, it is the behavior, right? And so that's what you're going to work out. But if you stand behind your child and let them know that you are always there and that you will listen, they have more of a chance to come forward and come to you. So, at some point they might go and pick up that little envelope, hand it to you, and you know what you have to do. And take a deep breath and let them share what they need to share. These are some of the tips that parents really have to understand. Alex had also mentioned something that I had to jump on, which was this idea of parents restricting and parents taking everything away and putting that child, taking away all their devices, et cetera, because they did something wrong or something inappropriate or something that was not with the family values. When you take away the devices from that child, you are effectively cutting them off from all communication. That might be your plan, but I want you to really think about the detriment that might cause as well. And so if you're speaking with your children beforehand, saying, hey, let's talk about some of the consequences here. What are going to be some of the consequences if you don't do X, Y, Z? Let your children come up with their punishment. They will be harsher than you will, and they will be more creative, I'm sure. And try that. Just because, again, by cutting them off of all technology, this is a different age. This is not when we were children and they could say, you're grounded for a week. We're no longer in this type of situation. So they'll lose out on homework. They won't know what's happening. And it's a different environment and different world.
Thank you so much. And I think, it makes me wonder, just listening to both of you, I was wondering the differences between children at different ages as well. So is that something you can speak to? Because
yes.
I'm just thinking, for a younger child, how would you approach this depending on the different ages of the children?
Yeah. So actually, Alex again mentioned something really important, which was about spyware, right? So I think that when we're talking about our children and these child development and these different ages, there is a different age for a time and an age for everything. If you look at PEGI, which are the game ratings, or even more simply, if you look at movie ratings, they tell you what your child can see or not see, right? It is the same thing in the online world. I wish that we would have some sort of online developmental roadmap that would tell us from 0 to 3, your child is able to do this. Or from 4 to 8, they can do this. 9 to 12. That's not how it is, because I've seen 2-year-olds with smartphones and this and that. Okay. We're not talking about that, but what we are saying is that your children, their behavior, and you have to really try to stick with what is developmentally appropriate. There is a reason that the social media websites are not for children under 13. Yes, it became because of the United States and COPPA, a lot of other reasons, but really they are not mentally and psychologically prepared to deal with a lot of the things that they see or what's available. So yes, there are definite differences, and it goes back to, as Alex was saying, about spyware. You might think, oh, I want to know what my child is doing at all times. I can assure you that if your child finds out you've placed spyware on their device, they will not trust you. And that I'm answering someone else's question in the chat. Alawatsa had mentioned that as well. They won't trust you anymore. And that's the last thing you want. If you are going to use spyware, and I'm not saying don't, but if you are going to, let them know and show them what you're doing. Say, this is why we're going to put these parental controls on, to understand, if you need to see this type of information, why we have filters and friending, et cetera. And again, an 8-year-old is different from an 18-year-old, and a 3-year-old is different from a 13-year-old. So use your best judgment, parents. And if you don't feel like you're really able to say that, talk with your teachers, talk with other parents. I'm sure they will be more than willing to add their 2 cents. Like, look at me, I can't shut up. You've asked me one question and I just want to keep talking about it. So ask, people will help.
No, but I think it's quite interesting. And we've got 2 questions, one hand up and then one question in the chat box. So I think I'll call Opoku Aduse to ask their question, and then we'll call on Angela next, Angela Jensen, to ask the question. So Opoku Aduse, would you like to unmute and ask your question? Okay, not sure about Opoku Aduse if you can hear us, but otherwise, Angela Jensen. I could also read out the question because I can see it's a comment, but I think there's a question there. So Angela Jensen has written, it would be great to know the brain development along that line and what exposure is appropriate. I've heard of myelination and blue light exposure in children's brains and nervous systems compared to adults.
Yeah, so I just put in a chat, Angela. It's okay. Don't worry. I saw your question. I put in some information about a blue light exposure, something that the American Optometric Association has come up with. And I think in general, what we need to remember, and these are the same rules for ourselves, is that no screens 2 hours before bedtime because of the blue light, and also just because of the hormones and us trying to get to sleep, the melatonin, etc., to slowly reduce that time. This is why I think, again, parents, why it was so important before when we would have, story time. You would sit there and read a story to your child, the cadence of your voice. That was how you would wind things down slowly. And it's the end of the day. When your child is sitting there playing games or trying to get that last snap streak in or putting something on Instagram, that's not it. It's very, very different. Yeah, it is extremely powerful to understand, Angela. I completely agree. There is so much that is happening all together. And I just think that this is what we do, is that as parents, our job is to go and ask questions and get information and to use your intuition as well.
Thank you very much for that. There is a question from Nikita Norona. And the question is, how does the digital safety conversation change based on a child's age, which I think is something we've tried to talk about just now. But there's also the question of what is appropriate to discuss during adolescent teen years with respect to grooming, cyberbullying, privacy, and how do we talk about it?
Well, I can tell you what I do when I'm speaking with children, and Alex can tell you as well what he does when he goes and speaks at school events, is that you use the appropriate language. We're not trying to scare children. There is no reason to talk to younger children and let them know that there are icky people, and you guys know what I'm talking about, that are out there trying to speak with them online, etc. That is the terminology that I use with younger children. I also ask them, have you seen anything that made you feel uncomfortable or that made you have little butterflies in your stomach? There are ways to ask children to open up without you scaring them and without saying those words, because we're not here to create fear. And you as a parent are not trying to create fear. You're just trying to make them aware that sometimes things are not what they seem. The same way that you would talk, Nikita, to your child about going to a park and what to do if a stranger walked up to them, that's the same way you're going to talk to them when they're online. Over to you, Alex.
Yeah, I have to agree there. I think you think about which concepts you introduce your child to, and it's more probably about themes than content. So actually, it's about practical strategies when you could help them understand if they came across something that was upsetting or frightening, or what would they do, what could they do, and helping them explore that so they develop some of those skills. I think is really important because you don't necessarily need to talk about really extreme content that perhaps might give them nightmares. Instead, you can talk about what is a real friend? What does a real friend look like? How would a friend interact with you online? How can you trust certain information that you read, or if someone tells you something in a message, critical thinking skills. So I think I would keep more around sort of positive strategies like that, rather than having to talk about all the scary things that go wrong.
Thank you very much, Alex. And I think one of the things that has struck me, right from the conversation with Janice and then even into today's conversation, is that these strategies, these tips are what we need to keep children safe even offline, right? So whether they're online or they're offline, it will be the same things around. If you see something, say something, or if you experience something that's upsetting, or whatever, but just open the lines of communication so that children know that they're not alone and that you're their best friends until they find out otherwise, of course. And then there's competition for your love and affection. But yeah, thanks for that. Now, just to conclude on this segment of concerns, before we then move into strategies and suggestions, a more positive note, I would like to ask, we've mentioned some of these, but just to bring it all together, how can parents actually differentiate normal online behavior and potential warning signs of, cyberbullying, online grooming, or any of all these other consents, inappropriate content, and all of that. And what steps, practical steps, can parents take if they suspect that their children are being targeted? And I'll tell you why I ask this question. Because now we know that we can't spy on children, right? We should respect privacy while at the same time ensuring their safety. So I guess, again, when we think about teenagers, we know that teenage behavior changes as well. So how can, with something worrisome, due to engagement online, and what practical steps can parents take if they suspect that the children are being targeted? Alex?
You want me to go, Alex, or do you want to go?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I think, again, practical steps, it's always the same thing. Where you need to make sure that your child is safe and that your child is feeling comfortable enough to talk with you, to let you know what's going on. Then you also need to get the story, right? As much as you can. You need to be able to have them open up and speak with you honestly about the situation. As you're reassuring them, I mean, that's your job, right? Is to reassure them, to protect them. Then you're going to start trying to document as much as you can, taking screenshots. And if you don't know how to take a screenshot, ask your child. They will tell you. You can take screenshots on a smartphone, on your computer, because you want to document. This is me speaking as a lawyer. You want to document some of this evidence. You do not start sharing it around. Please don't do that. You just hold on to it in case you need to report later to the police. But first, you're going to go by steps, right? It's like really an escalation where you're talking with your children. If there's something's happened at the school, you talk with the school. Do not go and talk with the other parents, please, because you might start fighting. Just take it up slowly and slowly. And then also you can reach out to the platform in the United Kingdom and also in Europe. There are helplines that will help you, that will walk you through some of these situations and also guide you with what to do. Alex, anything specific for cyberbullying?
Yeah, I think that really good advice there. And I think with something like cyberbullying, it's easy. Elizabeth mentioned earlier, it's about behavior. So it doesn't define your child. And actually, it's quite easy to slip into negative or perhaps upsetting behavior. So it's also about applying a bit of the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't understand the power of their words, or in that moment they got a bit carried away. So that could be something there. But I think it's also about when you talk to your child about these issues, it is really best not to put the fear into them, because actually for a child they may worry that if they tell you, you might make it worse, or they might think that because of the way you've talked about that issue, that if they ever did it, then their life was ruined and that's it. And that's not helpful for the child, because then they feel like they have very little choice. They might hurt themselves, or do something, or suffer in silence. So it is really important that you don't present, I suppose, a potential mistake on the internet as their life being over, because we know that it is possible to make these mistakes and rectify them. As Elizabeth mentioned, there's a lot of great support services that specifically help children who have been through harmful experiences remove some of that harmful content that may still be up online, or support their child. So I think it's really, really important that you help your child know that you would support them together if something did go wrong on the internet. In the same way, if something went wrong offline, you'd work together on it. So give them that sort of really positive message and reassurance.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. And I think it's really important, because you remind us that even the children who engage in online activities or antisocial online behaviors are also children, right? And they've got parents and guardians as well. So we're all responsible for them, both the good, the bad, the ugly. So we have to be prepared, whatever we're presented with, to remain the supports and ensure that we guide them through that process. So what we're doing here today is not only saying, how do we protect the good kids, so-called, but it's just saying, look, kids could make mistakes. It doesn't define them. and we should be able to support them to, where they make mistakes, retrace their steps and become responsible citizens online as well as offline, because that's the goal, right? So thanks for
100%.
reminding us.
And hang
Yeah.
on, Pity, I'm jumping in again. Because no, you're so right. And that's exactly it. And I think that parents also need to remember that you are you are supporting your children, and you're helping them to make decisions. You're teaching them critical thinking, right? You're helping them to make decisions for when you are not in the room. That is what I want you to always think about as when you're talking about little kids who are trying to decide if they're going to watch I don't know, something on Nickelodeon or BBC's. BBCBs. You are trying to show them what is good quality, and it's the same thing as they get older with social media. You're trying to show them the good and the bad. It's the same thing with video games. You're trying to show them what is appropriate and not appropriate, and so all of these things are quite simply because you can lock down everything. You guys can put parental controls and spy apps on all the stuff that you want in the world, and your child is just going to come and ask the child sitting right next to them, show me your phone. And then what are you going to do? So really, like I said, spy apps, yeah. But your children are very creative, right? And so I think that's what you have to keep in mind, that you want to have your child know that you are their trusted resource. You are their friend. You may not understand all the technology. You don't have to. That's okay. You just want what's best for them.
Thank you so much for that. And I think that leads us nicely into the strategies and the suggestions for empowering our parent community. So the first question I have for this segment is, how can collaboration between parents, schools, and communities actually enhance children's digital well-being?
Yes, that's a big question. And I think what's fun too is that I actually worked on a project, the Enable project that Janice had mentioned, worked on that with Alex, in fact, where we were really trying to look at a holistic approach of everyone. How could we all get together to combat cyberbullying? And it was, looking at schools, the communities, families, the government. But again, Pity, I don't want to, the problem is one that needs a solution where we're all in it together, 100%. But until that happens, I want parents to realize it is on us, because we're the ones who are the legal guardians of these little people. We're their digital guardians. And so unfortunately, more of it comes on us. But fortunately, we also have the source. We also have children to talk to. And just before we go back to strategies, I just want to answer Angela's question really quickly about digital footprints, because this is so huge. And I think this is something else that parents aren't thinking about, especially parents of younger children. When you're looking at babies and you are doing, there are things like your ultrasound photos, and you're putting all these things online, or even saying, I had a baby girl or I had a baby boy. You really have to realize that you are the digital guardian of your child, and that footprint, you are basically putting them out there in the world before they're 18. So I tell all parents to be very careful about posting. If you're going to post pictures of your child, do like Mark Zuckerberg, put an emoji on their face. If he's doing that, you have to wonder why. Think about it, parents. So, things like this where it's really critical thinking. As far as personal information, Angela, worst case scenarios, of course, it could be used for anything and everything. What I'm going to do right now, as I stop talking once again, I'll put in the chat for you a very recent ad that was done by Deutsche Telekom, which is excellent, showing about AI and what can go wrong with digital footprints and how we have to take care of our children. So I will put that in the chat for everyone to see.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Alex?
Yeah, I think I'd want to echo that. I'm just putting in the chat now to the projects that Elizabeth mentioned that we'd worked on, and there's a lot of resources there that help you explore some issues around sort of online safety, social emotional learning and awareness. So I would recommend having a look at those. I think there's an awful lot of resources out there, but also maybe asking your child's school, what do they cover as part of the computing curriculum or safety curriculum? Having a look at your child's policy around acceptable ICT use, and understanding what the school's policy is on that. And again, I suppose, making sure that you keep in strong contact with a teacher if you have any concerns about what may be going on online, because schools do have a bit of a duty of care and they can support you on this as well.
Thank you so much. And one of the points you raised, which was very key, I mean, you raised very many important points here, but in terms of strategies, you talked about the fact that we need to empower the children to be able to make responsible decisions when we're not there. So I guess the question is, in practical terms, what are the key strategies which parents can adopt in order to build that digital resilience and indeed empower their children to make safe and responsible decisions online, and shall I say by themselves when you're not there?
For me, top 2 tips and strategies that they can implement right now: critical thinking, communication. Just to always keep raising these things up, as far as, who, what, where, what's the device for, what's the platform for, what could possibly go wrong, as Alex had mentioned, where you're kind of saying, how could this be used in a bad way? How can this be used in a good way? And setting them up to find out how would you react? What would you do? And again, Pity, this is not any different than what we do when we take them to the park and we say, what would you do if somebody comes up and offers you some candy? It's things like that that we have to think about. And again, just bringing it down a level. I don't want to say that these are the top 5 things you should do, because then parents will sit there and struggle to remember that. But I just think critical thinking and communication. If you have an open conversation with your child, you would understand what's going on and what they're doing and how to support them. A list of platforms, I have that for you coming up, Angela. It's coming up when we share resources.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Alex?
So echo really what Elizabeth said. I think that's the top advice there, really.
Thank you very much. Now, I think you've now raised the important point. You said 2 things, communication and also ensuring that the children feel they can trust you. So the question is, how can parents effectively communicate with their children about online safety? And are there some strategies for promoting that open dialogue and trust building? And there I say that it has to be also building on offline trust building and safety as well. So how do we ensure that we're having this open communications? Any tips?
Well, you just called it, Pity, but it's the same way that we do it in the offline world, right? Where we are with them, we are guiding them, we are leading by example, we are role models. We are also, we put down our phones at the dinner table. It's these types of things. You are showing them the sort of digital citizen that you want them to grow up to be. I also think in part of your question, you had said, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. It was really good. Dee, remind me, what was your question? Remind me. Say it again. I just lost it.
I'd asked about open communication, trust building, and saying that this would be put offline and online.
Yeah, well, the thought came and went. I don't know. Somebody started screaming over there and I lost it. But the whole idea anyway is just is really if you have those conversations, if you are talking to them, if you are involved with what they're doing, showing interest, eventually we hope that something will come up. Again, I can promise you that it's not going to be with your parental spyware that you're going to issues you may think that you will, but you're only going to get some of them. And so I think that we have to remember that it's just the same as it is in the offline world. There's really nothing different here. It's just that they have more toys to play with.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I think there's the same, in many ways, perhaps there's more dangers offline in terms of sort of road safety, traffic, drugs, alcohol, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's the balance is making sure that we don't look at them as really separate worlds. Yes, you may not feel like you can see all that's going on on the internet, but that's where the conversation becomes really important, so that you do understand what platforms, what games, what content, and what perhaps risks there might be online, in the same way that you understand what your child's doing day to day offline, where they're going, who they're socializing with. It's just that balance really, and trying to put it into perspective. And remember that most children do lead really happy, positive lives online, and that's really important that we stay positive on that.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Alex. It's true that I talk so much about, the prevention part, but we really 80%, 90% of the children are just having a great time, wonderful opportunities. And it is that horrible percent. Obviously, we don't want our children to be in that percentage, but it's that horrible percentage that we read about, that we're seeing in the press, and that's why we're all freaked out. Petty, can I ask if I can share some of the resources, because I really wanted to answer Angela's question about that list of
This
platforms.
is the time to do
Oh,
that.
perfect! Yay!
Yes. No, I mean, it's been really amazing. And I think this is a good time to share those resources that we've been talking about in the different segments. So would you want to talk us through them? I've seen
if they get loaded up on screen, I'll talk about them. In the meanwhile, I'll answer Angela's question about sharing pictures over Messenger. No, Angela. No, that's a no. Okay. We're not going to be sharing any pictures because you think that the app is encrypted. Yay. Okay. But what happens if you show the picture and then somebody else takes their phone and takes a screenshot of that picture? Doesn't matter, right? So the best that you can do is go old school, and you don't need to share it. You really don't. Okay, so let me go really quickly on just some of these resources. So you've seen me put in the chat many times, and Alex as well. Internet Matters. I'm also one of their expert writers. Absolutely love a lot of their content. If you speak other languages, you will see at the bottom of their website that they do have other languages. Let me just say what's great there. They have advice by age. I put some of those into the chat. Setting controls. You can find guides on different platforms. So really, all of your questions, you can find the responses there. Next slide. Common Sense Media. I saw that Alex just put that one in. This is one of my favorites as far as understanding what an app is. What are the? Don't worry, Angela, I'm getting there. What the app is saying. What type of game it is. What kids think about it. Movie reviews. Everything. So when your child says, "Oh, I want to upload something. I want to try this new game out, this new platform," say, "Yeah, great. Let's go look at Common Sense Media together and talk through it." Okay. Next one. Young Minds. Alex, you want to mention about Young Minds, how it's a super resource here? Yeah.
So Young Minds is one of the sort of leading platforms around if you had concerns about a child and their mental health. They've actually got a parent helpline. They've also got lots of online resources and some really good online sort of resources, trainings, conversation starters. But yeah, really, really important charity to make sure that the minds of young people are, healthy and positive, and a big focus on sort of parents knowing that they're not alone as well.
Great, thank you. Next one. So ChildNet, also super fabulous. And my 16-year-old son is on the youth council there. So he's always helping out, trying to make the online world safe. So again, tons of resources and fun things. So just take a peek. And the next one. Better Internet for Kids. So this was what I'd wanted to show you before, Angela, this list of platforms where you can actually see, where you can go in and you can look and see. You can also do the same thing with Common Sense Media. And they will also do ratings like 2 out of 5 for violence or profanity. You will see all of that information there. And with respect to sharing pictures with your parents or overseas, parents, go for it. Okay, but if anything else happens, don't share too much with anybody else. Okay, that's what I'm saying. And I think there's one more, maybe. Oh, there is. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Which is a digital parenting community, and that's where I just invited everyone to come and hang out, because that's where Alex and I are. And I don't know if there's anything else after. I don't think so. We've also put in the link. Oh, thanks, Caroline. Glad the information is useful. We've also put in the chat information about the Diana Award, where Alex currently is. All of the resources that we can think of, and again, we are available. Just ask questions and follow up with Pity. We have all the information there. She's your parent team lead. Go, Africanus.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alex and Janice. And I must say, the Diana Award isn't just for adults, because I've got my friend's daughter who was awarded recently. So there's something in there for kids as well. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. So there's something in there for our kids as well. So everyone, please get on board and find out more about all these excellent organizations. Wow. I must say, it's been an insightful and informative session for me as a parent. I've got kids at different ages. So when I asked the question about how do we speak to children at different ages, I was just thinking about myself, but of course, other parents as well who were thinking the same. So thank you so much, Alex and Elizabeth, for sharing with us, for giving so much of yourselves. And thank you to our wonderful audience as well for all your questions, both before the webinar and even at today's session. And I must say thanks to Janice as well. For Genesis session, which, like I say, has already been recorded and shared on our social media platforms. And I would invite all of us to engage with all of the recordings and resources. Now, I would like to let you know about our next series of events. So for August, we're not doing a completely new session, but we're doing a recap of all the webinars we've had in the previous months. So we had a webinar on GCSE and A-level with Ofcol, the government body in charge of the exams. We also had a roundtable on cultural inclusiveness, and then we covered neurodiversity and inclusive education, which was one of the issues that Elizabeth mentioned as well. And then we had a session on with parents as well as teachers, again, on the issue of inclusive education and how to support different children with different learning abilities and learning needs. So we will be discussing all of these sessions and the highlights, and it will be an open conversation. So we'd like all of you to be there with us. And we will also be discussing some of the key messages from the podcasts which we run. And I hope that if you haven't listened to any of the episodes of the podcast, yes, you will do, because it's quite interesting. All the podcasts as well as the webinar recordings are online. All of the things we've done since the start of the year. And the recordings are on the Afrikindness web app, which we'll be inviting you to follow if you haven't already done that. So please join us in August to discuss these resources, some of these that have been shared today, but also the resources from our previous sessions, as well as the opportunities for what I would say is enhancing our parenting superpowers, because it does feel like we have to be superpowered people to be able to bring up the young, brilliant minds that we have as our children and wards today. We hope to be able to effectively support ourselves and guide our children and wards to become kind model citizens wherever they may go through these kinds of engagements. So please check our parent app for further details and do register to be part of the discussions in August. You can follow us on our social media, as well as if you want to join us and volunteer, because Afrikindness is run by a team of volunteers. We're all volunteering. So if you'd like to join us as a volunteer, or if you want to support our programs in any other way, please do get in touch with us through our emails or our social media handles, which you can see on the screen now. We'd love to hear from you. With that, I would say again, a very big thank you to everyone who's been here, Alex, Elizabeth, the audience. Thank you all so much for a brilliant, engaging, and informative session. Join the podcast, speak to us. Thank you for joining us today. And don't forget that to keep children safe online, we have to educate ourselves as parents. We have to be involved with the children as well. We have to communicate with them. And it's not only about keeping them safe online. The skills we gain to keep them safe online will also keep them safe offline. So let's invest in all of these to empower our children. And let's not forget to connect with one another, because we strengthen each other in our community as parents. So engage with other parents, engage with all the platforms that are out there to support us. Live your best and thrive as parents. Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for being here and enjoy the summer holidays.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex and Elizabeth. Thanks,
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.